The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up to my new cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Virginia, on a chilly October evening in 2024. It had been a grueling 4-hour drive from Richmond. Each curve of the mountain road a reminder of why I'd snagged this place for a steal. Sight unseen, based on a few grainy listing photos. A remote retreat, perfect for a renovation project I'd been dreaming about for years. I'd sunk every penny I had into this plasmy escape from the city grind. But as I stepped out of my truck, toolbox in hand, I froze. Lights glowed through the windows. A car I didn't recognize sat in the driveway. Curtains hung where none should have been. Someone was inside my cabin. I stood there, keys dangling, wondering if I'd punched the wrong address into the GPS. But no, this was it, the cedar-sided cabin, the sagging front porch, the misty valley view I'd fallen for in those photos. Before I could process it, the door swung open, and a woman in her late 50s stood there, apron tied over a sweater, clutching a spatula like she was the queen of the kitchen. "This is HOA property now," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the mountain air. "Who are you? And why are you trespassing?" I blinked, dumbfounded. Trespassing? In the house I'd bought 6 months ago. Her name was Evelyn Carter. She said, chair of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association's Oversight Committee. She waved a badge in my face. Official looking, like she was some kind of mountain sheriff. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and tried to explain I was the owner. But she was already on her phone, barking. "Yes, this is HOA security. I've got an intruder." The inside of the cabin looked like Evelyn's personal domain. Her groceries were stacked in my fridge, labeled with her name. Family photos her kids. Her grandkids lined my fireplace mantel. A stack of documents sat on the counter next to a coffee maker that screamed permanent resident. She launched into a spiel about how the cabin had been abandoned after the previous owners died, and the HOA had taken emergency control to prevent fire hazards. "I'm protecting this property," she said, flipping through her papers with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this scene. My own documents, closing papers, title transfer, insurance policies sat in my bag. Proof I'd bought this place fair and square in April 2024. But Evelyn barely glanced at them. "That's nice," she said, "but the HOA's authority overrides your purchase. This place was under our control before you closed." I walked through the cabin, phone still recording. Her clothes hung in the bedroom closet. Her mail was addressed to E. Carter, Fire Safety Liaison, at my address. Under the kitchen sink, I found a folder labeled Property Oversight. Inside was an HOA report, dated April 5th, 2024, one day after my closing, claiming the cabin was abandoned. The timing felt too convenient. Then I heard a car door slam outside. A sheriff's deputy, Officer Laura Mitchell, was striding up the path. Evelyn had called in suspicious activity. I showed Laura my driver's license and purchase papers, while Evelyn flashed her HOA credentials. After a tense back and forth, Laura sighed. "This is a civil dispute, not criminal. You'll need to sort it out legally." My phone buzzed with a text from the county building department. "Permit application frozen pending HOA oversight resolution." My $12,000 contractor deposit was now in limbo, and my renovation loan payments were starting next week. Desperate for answers, I drove to the nearest neighbor, George Larson, a retired CPA who'd lived in Pine Hollow for decades. His cozy living room smelled of wood smoke as he pored over my documents. "Your purchase is airtight," he said, tapping the escrow dates. "Closed April 4th, 2024. But this HOA abandonment claim, I've never seen them move this fast. George pulled out a binder of HOA records. We scoured 2 years of meeting minutes, finding nothing about my cabin or any attempt to contact me. But on March 5th, 2024, entry caught our eye, a vote to approve caretaker subsidies for a vacant property, dated 1 day after my closing. Evelyn had been living here, rent-free, collecting $700 a month from the HOA totaling over $16,000 since the previous owners. An elderly couple named the Thompsons died in 2022. George frowned. She moved in as a volunteer caretaker after they passed, then got the HOA to pay her. And it's not just your place. There's another cabin nearby. Same deal, different caretaker. Same subsidy scam. The next morning, I marched into the county office in Roanoke, armed with every document George and I had dug up. Inspector Daniel Hayes, a grizzled veteran of property disputes, listened as I laid out the situation. Evelyn swept in, now in a crisp blazer, carrying a tablet loaded with photos of supposed hazards, loose railings, scorched outlets, overgrown brush. Her titles rolled off her tongue: share of oversight, fire safety coordinator, regulatory liaison, like she was running for office. I countered with my proof of ownership, purchase contract, title insurance, tax records. Hayes studied both sides, then delivered the bad news. This is complex. The HOA's emergency powers are real for abandoned properties, but a legal purchase usually ends that. We need a site inspection to settle it. Evelyn smirked, whispering, once he sees the place, you'll look like the reckless one. Back at George's, we strategized for the inspection. He was worried. Evelyn's too confident, like she's got an ace up her sleeve. That evening, I went to the cabin to talk to her, hoping to understand her side. She was chopping carrots in my kitchen, the picture of domestic calm. I appreciate you working with the HOA process, she said, her tone patronizing. Mountain properties need expertise you don't have. When I asked about the $700 monthly payments, her smile tightened. Maintaining a vacant cabin is full-time work, she snapped, flashing her badge at my phone's camera. I pressed further, asking for utility bills or receipts. She dodged, saying, the HOA handles funds. My job's oversight, not accounting. My phone was live streaming to George and the neighborhood chat, catching every word. The inspection morning was tense. Hayes arrived with a clipboard, George as my witness, and Evelyn with a binder thicker than a novel. She pointed out a wobbly porch railing, loudly noting it for George's live stream. But I noticed the bolts were barely tightened, someone had loosened them. Hayes agreed. A quick wrench would fix it. Evelyn's photos of hazardous outlets showed scorch marks, but the actual outlets were pristine. Timestamps revealed her images were taken days ago, not months. Then Hayes found a notebook hidden behind kitchen supplies, listing sabotage plans, loosen railing bolts for movement, remove outlet covers for photos, pile brush near foundation. Dates matched my permit application. Evelyn stammered, claiming they were maintenance notes. But Hayes wasn't buying it. This property's in great shape. These hazards were staged. He revoked the HOA's authority and restored my permits. That night, I couldn't sleep. Evelyn's notebook proved she'd gone to extremes. At 11 p.m., I drove back to the cabin, finding George's porch light on. He joined me, flashlight in hand. We heard noises, metal on wood coming from the back. Creeping around, we caught Evelyn with a drill and saw, cutting into the porch supports. If someone stepped there, it could collapse. I recorded, called 911, and confronted her. She claimed she was checking for hazards, But the fresh saw marks told the truth. Deputy Mitchell arrived, her body cam capturing the damage. "This is criminal mischief and endangerment," she said, cuffing Evelyn as she protested. 3 weeks later, at the Roanoke courthouse, Evelyn's sentencing hearing unfolded. In an orange jumpsuit, she looked defeated. The prosecutor detailed her crimes: fraud, property damage, theft of $16,000 in HOA funds, and endangerment. Her lawyer argued she acted out of community concern, but the notebook and sabotage evidence crushed that defense. The judge sentenced her to 15 months in jail, 2 years probation, full repayment of $16,000 plus my renovation costs, and a restraining order. The HOA faced an audit, and Evelyn was stripped of all roles. 3 months later, I stood in my renovated cabin. New porch, modern kitchen, fresh paint. It was the retreat I dreamed of. George, now my property manager, handed me a progress report. The insurance covered the sabotage, and Evelyn's repayments ironically funded better contractors. As we watched the sunset, I felt a mix of triumph and unease. Evelyn's scheme was over, but how many others had she exploited? What would you have done walking into your own home to find a stranger claiming it as theirs? Would you have stayed calm or lost it? Could you forgive someone who maintained your property but profited off it? Drop your thoughts below. Hit like if this twisted tale hooked you, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you guessing.